Hello, so it's time for another quarterly seasonal wrap-up. So I only read 11 books according to my Goodreads. I did finish one long series, the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn. If you want to see my series review, I'll leave a link to that down below. So after, I think the last book I read from the Julia Quinn series that I reviewed during this seasonal wrap-up was the third book in the series. I then moved on to something a little bit different because I think I needed a little bit of a break from that series, and I read Never Never by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher. I think this was that collaboration. Yeah, so I actually found the bind up of the 3 novellas that they wrote together, and this book has been recommended to me by my sister. It's about this couple who is in high school, but they wake up one day and they don't really remember anything. They don't remember anything about themselves, they don't remember anything about each other and just the world that they're in, like their families and everything that's going on in their lives. They have no recollection of any of that, and so the whole story, the whole 3 novellas, is about them trying to figure that out, I guess. I didn't really like it. I thought it was very confusing, without any sort of payoff. There was no sort of explanation as to why this was really happening, and towards the end of it, I'm not even sure if they kind of fixed it or figured it out. I don't know. The ending was definitely a letdown, but yeah, I didn't enjoy this. So the next book that I read, I continued on with the Julia Quinn series, and that book is To Sir Philip with Love. This one is the 4th book in the series, and it follows Eloise, one of the Bridgerton sisters, and I felt like the romance in this particular one was very lackluster. Eloise, I was really looking forward to her book actually, because she's a supporting character in all the other books, of course, and I just felt like she would have been a really cool person to do a book on. But yeah, the romance was just not there. It's just kind of this like pen pal-y sort of romance. So Eloise has been writing letters to this man named Sir Philip, who was married to her cousin or her second cousin or something, but that cousin he was married to passed away for whatever reason. I'm not going to spoil it, and so they kind of connected somehow, and they started like writing letters to each other, and then yeah, there's some sort of romance. I didn't quite like the romance, to be honest. Okay, so after that I needed to take another break from, I think I was reading these 2 books kind of like at the same time. So I read and finished Some Girls Are by Courtney Summers. It's a reread. It's my 3rd reread of this book. I really like it. I do have a physical copy of it, and I did a whole review on it. I reread it specifically because I wanted to do a review on it, because I went through a phase a couple of years ago where I just didn't really do book reviews because they weren't really that popular anymore, but I think I want to start doing them more now because it's more just for me, to be honest, just for me to remember like my thoughts on the book after finishing it. But yeah, I really like this book. I will leave the link to my review down below, but as a bit of a little summary. This book is about this girl in high school named Regina. Something happens to her at a house party one weekend. She tells one of her friends about this thing that happened, but then when she goes back to school the next week, that friend sort of twisted the story in a way that makes her look like the bad guy. And then there's some casual mean girl bullying, which is really fun to read. I really like this one. Alright, so then I continued on with the Bridgerton series, and I read the next book, which is called When He Was Wicked by Julia Quinn. This one follows Francesca, which is another Bridgerton daughter, and it's this trope of complicated friends to lovers. It's like a friends to lovers, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. So Francesca is married to this man named John. John has a cousin who his name is Michael, and they are both like cousins, but also they're best friends. So when Francesca marries John, the three of them sort of become really close. They do everything together. Now the hiccup is that Michael has been in love with Francesca since the very beginning, since the first time he met her, which is, I think it was when John introduced her to like everyone. And but obviously he's never wanted to pursue it or anything like that because she's married to his best friend slash cousin. So one day in the beginning of the book, John dies suddenly, and obviously both Francesca and Michael are grieving the loss of their best friend, basically. And there's this whole complication because Michael feels like he wants to comfort Francesca during this time because they're both grieving the same person, but at the same time he doesn't want to get close to her because of his feelings towards her. It's very dramatic and complicated. I like this one slightly more than To Sir Philip with Love. It's still not like The Viscount Who Loved Me, but I really like it. Next I read It's in His Kiss. For some reason I thought that this was the last book in the series, but no, this is the second last. So this one follows Hyacinth. So basically Hyacinth is friends with Lady Danbury, I think that's her name, who's this recurring character in the Bridgerton books. She's kind of just one of the older ladies of the ton, and everyone is sort of like slightly scared of her, but Hyacinth is really good friends with her and goes over to her place to read to her every week, once a week. Now this old lady has a grandson, and there's a bit about his backstory, but I won't spoil that. But he has a grandson, and the romance is basically between Hyacinth and this grandson. I really like Hyacinth as a character. I thought she was really cool. She is basically what I wanted Eloise to be. She reminds me a little bit of Kate, but like less grumpy, I guess. So yeah, I did enjoy this one. Moving on, I read the last book in the Bridgerton series called On the Way to the Wedding. This one follows Gregory, and his romance is a little bit more interesting. So he is this type of person that has this romanticized, elaborate, dramatic idea of what love is. He thinks that he will just look at another person and he just gets the feeling of love, and that's that. So he goes into this sort of party thinking that way, and then he and the girl that he kind of spots is also someone who thinks love is that way as well, but obviously it's not. And yeah, this one was a lot more dramatic than a lot of the other Bridgerton books, especially towards the end. There's a lot more that happens. So yeah, this one was entertaining. I don't know if I would say that I really like the romance all that much, but it was a lot more entertaining. Okay, so after reading all the Bridgerton books, I wanted to take a little bit of a break from romance, and I read a thriller. I read Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. I just recently watched the TV series because I found it on DVD, and I watched all, I think is it 6 or 8 episodes? 8 episodes, I think. I watched all 8 episodes, and I really liked it, and so I wanted to pick the book up. I thought that this was very close to the TV show. I thought the TV show did a really good job in like sticking really close to the book. I think the only difference is there's slightly more characters in the book, but I didn't feel like that sort of changed the story in any way. And the other difference is that the characters and the town that they live in is in Australia, not in America. So the plot of this book basically surrounds a few different families, but mostly 3 or 4. So the reason why these families are all connected is because they all have kids that go to this one kindergarten school in town, and there's been a murder. So I think the book starts off with a murder, and we don't know who was murdered, and we don't know how they were murdered, and we don't know why either. So the book kind of goes back to the beginning and just the events that lead up to this particular murder. I think that's all I'm gonna say. If you haven't watched the TV show and you haven't read the book, I think that's enough for you to go into it being slightly intrigued. I really liked it. I thought it was really well written, and yeah, really suspenseful. Next, I read The Last Time We Say Goodbye by Cynthia Hand. I've been wanting to read this book for the longest time. I remember putting this book on my Goodreads like maybe 6 years ago, I'm not sure, like a very long time ago, because it's been on my Goodreads for ages. I decided to pick it up, and unfortunately I was very disappointed. Not that it's a bad book, it was just not what I wanted it to be. So basically it's about this girl, forgot her name. You learn in the very beginning that she is in therapy because her brother has recently passed away, and she is filled with a lot of grief and just a lot of hatred on the world, but also she's filled with a lot of guilt as well. She doesn't talk about it. That's kind of the whole plot of the book, is kind of what happened to make her feel this way. I just felt like I wanted a little bit more exploration on her feeling that way, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so after reading that book, I read Help Wanted by Richie Tankersley Cusick. So I've read another one of this author's book back a few years ago, and I really liked it. I think I read it for a Halloween readathon or something, but that other book is called Trick or Treat by Richie Tankersley Cusick, and I've been wanting to read more from her, so I read Help Wanted because I found it secondhand, and it wasn't that good. I didn't really like it. It was really, I'm not sure if it was just really generic, or if I've read too many of those kind of stories that I just didn't find this one that special. Okay, so after that I went back to romance and I read I think this is my first Sophie Kinsella book that I actually finished, because every time I pick up a Sophie Kinsella book I don't end up finishing them, but I gave this one a chance. It's called Love Your Life by Sophie Kinsella. I think this is a newer release, but it's about this girl who is a writer and she goes on this writing retreat in Italy. She meets a guy there and she is one of those girls in books where they have this idea of what love is and they're very naive about it, and so she goes into this being like, oh yeah, he's so perfect for me, we're so perfect together, I can't wait to go home and, like, you know, for him to get to know the people in my life and for me to get to know the people in his life. Well, they do come home to London. They both live in London, and it turns out that their lives are not that compatible. I didn't like the relationship in this. I just felt like it was very not realistic, but like I understand that like these kind of books, like the relationships in these kind of books aren't really that realistic, but it's not realistic in like not the best way. I just didn't like the way she thought. I didn't like the way she problem solved. And yeah, sometimes I read these kind of books and I have this thought of like, I'm glad I didn't read this when I was a teenager, and I wouldn't want my teenage daughter to have the same thought process and way of thinking and problem solving the same way, kind of thing. Like, I don't know, I feel like I understand that like not every book has to be this educational thing, but you do pick up certain things from books, and I just don't like the stuff that this book was putting down, basically. And then lastly, I read something a little bit different. I tried a new genre for me. Well, not really new, but like I haven't read this kind of genre in a while. I read The Secret of Heartwood Hall by Katie Lumsden. If you don't know, this author is also a booktuber. This is a historical fiction. It's set in the 1850s, and it's about this young woman who is a recent widow trying to look for a job in this village. She gets a position as a governess in Heartwood Hall to, I guess, take care or to teach this young boy, and she finds out that a lot of what happens in Heartwood Hall and in the village, there's a lot of secrets going on, and she also has secrets of her own. I also did a book review on this. If you want to go check that out, I will leave the link to it down below. But yeah, I thought that this was a really good historical fiction, gothic fiction, Jane Eyre kind of book, and I really liked it. So these were the books that I read this month. Obviously I've only got 2 of the books as physical copies, but yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books and let me know your thoughts on them, and if you have any recommendations for me, please leave them down below as well. And yeah, I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you next time.